Welcome to the Nourish Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Welcome back, friends. I'm so glad that you are here joining us on the Nourish Child today. Today, I've invited Joanne Fillman, a registered dietitian and media influencer contributor with over 15 years of experience in the field of nutrition. Her practice is called Wonderfully Nutritious Solutions, and she's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And she's the mom of 5 boys. So she's a working mom and a mom of 5 young boys. And I discovered her on Instagram, and I just love all the information she's putting out there. And today we're going to talk about being a mom to all boys, being a mom and a working mom, breastfeeding, which Joanne's been very upfront and vocal about on social media, her journey breastfeeding her 5th child. And so I just want to welcome you to the show. Like I said, I've been following you on Instagram for quite some time now. I first discovered you when you were pregnant with your 5th child, I think. You had all these beautiful photographs of you as a very pregnant mom. Yes.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, the funny story about those photographs is that they were supposed to be our 40th birthday pictures. And a month, because you have to book them way in advance because the photographer is so booked. Book them months in advance. A month after I book them, I find out I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm due like on our birthdays. My husband and I were 6 days apart in age. And my son, my 5th one, was born on my husband's birthday.
Oh,
believe it or not.
Oh my gosh. And tell me the range of your boys
in
terms of
I
ages.
have an 11-year-old, that's my oldest. And then I have an 8-year-old, 6.5 years old, a 3-year-old, and then the now 10-month-old.
Oh, wow. So I've been following you for about a year now then, I think, because you had your pregnancy photos and then you showcased the birth, right? You showcased the birth of the baby on social media. And that was, I thought, just so fascinating and amazing. And then the breastfeeding journey. So let's talk about that, because there's a lot of parents out there listening. And I'll just preface it with, I know enough about breastfeeding, just because A, I breastfed 4 of my own kids, and B, I need to know a little bit as a pediatric dietitian, but that's about the extent of my expertise. So I just want to qualify that before we dive in. And I think you had said as well.
I will piggyback off of that. Yes, absolutely. I have experience with my 5 that I've breastfed. I'm a registered dietitian, so I have some expertise, knowledge than the common layperson does. And I've done some research myself, for things that I've had to do in regards to like my own podcast. But I am no expert by any means.
Okay, so we're just going to preface that, and we're just going to talk about experience, not expertise so much. But, one of the things that really drew me in and wanted to have you on this show was a post that you did about Black women breastfeeding, and really it was a call to action, for lack of better words, to all Black women out there to really embrace the benefits and joys of breastfeeding. Just for the listeners out there, in terms of like the CDC does a report card on breastfeeding, and the most recent statistics say that, babies born in 2019, for example, most of them started out receiving breast milk. So about 83% of them, 78% were receiving breast milk at 1 month of age, and at 6 months, about half of them, 55%, received breast milk, and only 25% received them exclusively. Now, one of the things that you talked about was the experience for Black women is very different from the experience from all other races of women who are breastfeeding. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I started my breastfeeding journey, I feel like the support outside from my family, my mom, my husband, was supporting me because that's what I told him I wanted to do, what I wanted to do. But he really didn't know much about it either. But throughout the community, it's not something that you hear spoken about. Like, people don't say, hey, are you going to make sure you breastfeed your baby? And here's, some tips for you to follow just in case, this is the route you want to go. You don't really hear that in the Black community. And you weren't hearing it when I started breastfeeding in 2011. That's when I had my first kid. But I will say in the last 10 years, we've gotten way better than we were before. There's been a lot of support through social media, different social media platforms that are specifically geared towards breastfeeding support for Black women. So I will say that you can see that there has been some progress, but within our community, breastfeeding was I wouldn't necessarily say a taboo or a shame. I will say that formula feeding has always been a standard of financial status. Like, if you're able to afford formula, whether you're in the Caribbean, which is where I'm from. I'm originally from Haiti. I was born in Haiti. If you're able to afford formula, that means you have money. So I want to show people that I have money. So I'm going to find a way to formula feed no matter what, even if, breastfeeding, has been done by my grandmother, my mother, or whomever. That's the way it was. So my mom, like, when I've spoken to her, I used to always think that I was exclusively breastfed, but come to find out, she was like, no, you weren't. You were formula and breastfed. Your dad was like, feed that baby, give that baby some formula. That milk, your milk is not enough, that kind of thing. So you'll see within the Black community, there's that aspect of it where people are trying to show their status. So they're more likely to formula feed than to breastfeed. And then there's also the aspect of, excuse me, way back when in the day during the time that Black people were enslaved, we were forced to feed the master's wife's babies, the master's babies, I guess you could say. So we were forced to feed their babies. And even if it was at the detriment of our own babies, we were forced to do that. So there's always been that kind of, not a taboo, but like, we don't need to do that anymore because we are no longer enslaved. So people have passed that ideology down the line. Like, why are you breastfeeding your baby? You're not enslaved anymore. You don't need to breastfeed your baby. So people have then developed this idea, oh, well, we're just going to buy formula. Automatically, people just automatically assume, we're just going to buy formula and then that's it. Right. And so there's that. So the financial status, the aspect of it, the aspect of, we're no longer enslaved. And then, there's a shame that comes with it when people see you breastfeeding. You're ashamed to let them see you because there's that sexualization that people have of the breast because they think it's not for breastfeeding and that's its primary duties. Most people don't realize that. So that's what they're there for. If you choose to do that. So, so there, I find that even with my closest family members, friends, no matter how educated they are, I have to remind them, do you want to breastfeed? Because if you do, let me let you, I'm gonna let you know some of the things that I've done to be successful. Because even myself, I will tell you this, Jill, when I first had my firstborn, I had graduated from grad school maybe a couple of years before that. My graduate professor was maternal infant focused. So he was on it and he taught me a lot. And even with that, when I was in the hospital, even though my hospital was a breastfeeding friendly, which is very important for you to have breastfeeding friendly hospital so that they can give you that support. Even though my hospital was breastfeeding friendly, I was so apprehensive. I was so afraid of failure. By day 2, when I saw no milk, even though I had the knowledge, but when it was time for the experience, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? He's not going to have anything to eat. What am I? and he was in NICU too, so I had to pump because he was in NICU the first 14 days. And all those stressors, I can absolutely see why without the right support and the right information, someone can just give up and are like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Because it's not easy. It's not, I mean, it's
not at all.
natural, but there's like this whole thing. Oh, it should be natural. It should never hurt. It should be easy. And I know for my own journey, somebody said something to me very early on that if it hurts, it's not a proper latch. Pull your baby off and restart. And that was the thing I hung on to because I kept saying, oh, this doesn't feel right. Let's start over. Let's start over. Let's start over. And until we both got the hang of it. And but there is this myth, and I think that you hit the nail on the head, this myth that it's natural. And I think we automatically think as humans that if it's natural, it should be easy. But it's not necessarily easy in the first few days. It does become easy later on. Yeah.
It does. But I even say the first month, the first 6 weeks, I say, I tell people like focus on the breastfeeding, don't worry about weight loss. Don't worry about any of that. Focus on your breastfeeding, focus on you consuming nutritious foods, nutritious meals so that you can stabilize your breast milk. For me, the first minute and a half, I would say during that first 6-week period hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's tugging on my skin. It hurts. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm about to faint painful, but it's not painful. Right. And so after that, it goes away. It goes away. So like you said, if I had initially like my firstborn, I was like, something's wrong because they told me it's not supposed to hurt at all. But there was some pain there, but then it goes away. And then after the first 6 weeks, my breast got used to it. And then I have had no pain when he latches on. Yeah. And, I think that's information that needs to be clarified for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And when you, what's been your experience like? Cause you have an 11-year-old and now you have a 10-month-old. So I mean, I know I had my 4 children within 5 years. So it literally was pregnant, breastfeeding, pregnant, breastfeeding, pregnant, breastfeeding. There wasn't a lot of break in between for me. And there were conveniences with doing that for sure, but there were also inconveniences. So I'm curious as to what your experience has been like.
Oh, yeah. I think my experience has been all over the place because, like I said, my firstborn was in the NICU for first 14 days. So I could have automatically said, okay, there's no way I can breastfeed. But I was so adamant at breastfeeding that I was pumping twice a day and driving the 25 minutes to bring him milk in the NICU so that they can use my milk and not formula. I think he got a little bit of formula initially when my milk hadn't fully came in. But I did that. And then afterwards, when he got home, I completely, directly breastfed him. I only pumped if I needed to go out. I didn't go back to work or not being around him until I think maybe the 10th month. So I was blessed enough to have that because I think I was in between work or something that allowed me that long period of time. And so I was able to do that. And then with my second, I had to go back to work within 4 months. And so I spent like the first month, 6 weeks or so, I focused on directly breastfeeding and, trying not to have that stress full period, like being as stress-free as possible. And then at around 2-month mark, I started pumping in preparation for me to go back to work. So I was blessed enough to be able to pump like 1,000 ounces before I went back to work. So I had a
producer.
I am a producer. I had a huge freezer and a deep freezer and I put them all in there. So I had that experience. And then my third one, I had pretty similar things. I was going back to work, but I was going back to work only 2 to 3 days a week. So I only pumped when I needed to. And then my fourth one, pandemic hit like 9 months after he was born. So at that point, I was only going to work in the clinical office because I have a clinical side and in my private practice, I see one-on-ones. So with the clinical side, I was only going once a week. And so when the pandemic hit, I just, no pumping. Pumping was done. I was only pumping just for that one day. And then this one, I only pump when I've had to, if I'm going on a date night or something like that. But I'm not a really big fan of pumping. I'm not. I hate all that cleaning. I give much power to women who are like, I'm going to exclusively pump. I'm like, oh, really?
Wow.
I hate pumping. I hate pumping. I really do.
Yeah. I can't say that I was a fan either. I mean, my firstborn, I was home back in the day because she's going to be 26 next week. But back in the day, you got to have 3 months off for maternity leave. And so exclusively breastfeeding for that first 3 months, then pumping to prepare to go back to work and pumping at work. That was fun because, I mean, even though I worked in hospitals, it was literally like a janitor's closet that we had for pumping. And we've come a long way in terms of workforce, environment support, and those things. But
for the most part,
yeah, I probably shouldn't generalize that because I mean, my experience was always within a hospital, so you would think that would be the Cadillac of breastfeeding support rooms. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of pumping either. I was not a big producer. So for listeners out there, it runs the gamut. I mean, I always felt like I was just making enough to get to the next feeding. I never had a lot of surplus. I never was. And I had one breast that produced like twice as much as the other one.
I have that.
And so it's like, you know, and then mine, I didn't go as long as 10 months or even a year. I was always sort of back to work, or I was pregnant. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I have to stop because now I'm pregnant.
Right.
But it was a very wonderful experience. And there's so much research now. I mean, we know that breastfeeding in terms of immunology and, you know, improving and strengthening the immune system.
Absolutely.
Introducing flavors to babies early on.
Yes.
The emotional attachment and connection. Now we know things like responsive feeding, like women who breastfeed are just a little bit, they seem to be, through the research anyways, to be a little bit more likely to be responsive in their feeding, watching their child's, you know, hunger cues and fullness cues and being appropriately responsive to all of that. What would you say, you know, since you've actually sort of got your longitudinal study going on in your own home,
my own private study,
your own private research study, what would you say that you've noticed in terms of benefits for your boys?
Listen, so my first one, again, you know, for any first time moms out there, you know what it's like when you're a first time mom. Everything is like trial and error. You don't really know what to do, no matter how knowledgeable you are, you've been educated in nutrition, you don't know what to do. And so with my first one, at the 6-month mark, I was like, okay, I think I need to start supplementing. So I started giving him formula. He may be the only one that has had an ear infection. All the other ones have not had any ear infections. They have not had that many diaper rashes. I'm trying to think how many, you know, like this one right here, he's not had any diaper rashes because he's the most recent. So I could really remember what happened with him. He has not had any diaper rashes. I've definitely noticed that their immune system is stronger when they are breastfed. We went through 3 weeks after I had my 5th, the household got COVID. That was our first bout with COVID in the 2 years. And I was like, 3 weeks. I mean, we did so well. And then here comes Omicron just creeping through the door. And he caught it. And I was so nervous. But I just kept at it. You know, I was sick, but I kept on breastfeeding him. And he had symptoms as well. Kept on breastfeeding him. And, you know, we came through it. You know, I don't have any testing proof that what I'm saying is true. I'm just speaking from experience of what I've seen with my kids, that breastfeeding has provided a protective, an immunological protection for them when it comes to bacteria, when it comes to viruses. I haven't had that many, you know, of those creeping through my house. Now, the minute they stopped breastfeeding. It's a whole different ball game. Like they're they're bringing stuff in all the time in the house. I'm like, you guys, I mean, the school year just began and we're already 3 times sick. I'm like, what is going on? What
Yeah.
is going on?
I
But
wonder
I
too if that's,
absolutely believe you.
yeah, I wonder too if that's just being home for 2 years and now back into, the
Yeah, right.
exposure to everything.
That definitely probably has a part in it. And I don't know if you remembered. I'm trying to remember what year, if this was 2020 or 2021, that there was somewhere in New York that they were doing a study with breast milk,
Mm.
and in regards to COVID.
Oh,
Do you remember that? Oh,
no.
I gotta look for that article. But I was reading about that, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely not gonna stop breastfeeding. So my fourth one, I didn't stop breastfeeding until 2 months after I got pregnant with my fifth. So he was like about 2 years old when I stopped, because I was like, okay, we're gonna keep breast milk in the house because it
Yeah.
seems like they're studying it. So we're gonna keep it available just in case, guys.
Yeah. No, that's good. And so, as you think about your community and what needs to happen or what is happening but not being taken advantage of, or even policy, do you
Yeah.
feel like the Black community is supported in the way that they need to be supported in terms of breastfeeding? Kids change a lot. Their nutrition needs, eating habits, and food preferences do too. So much so, it can be hard to keep up. The Nourished Child, a website designed for parents who want more nutrition education, helps parents like you get crystal clear on raising good eaters. We've cracked the code on nourishing the whole child, whether you're raising a baby, a teen, or a child with health concerns. Our nutrition school and parent education programs help you get the inside scoop on food and nutrients, positive food parenting, and building self-motivated, autonomous kids who are good eaters. Visit thenourishedchild.com today.
I don't think so, because I feel like those who are in areas that would be considered low socioeconomic areas, I don't think that they have hospitals that are baby friendly. I mean, breastfeeding friendly, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't feel like the conversation of breastfeeding support is done even during the perinatal time, like when they're going into their visits. Are they're being encouraged or just probing, what are you wanting to do? Do you want to breastfeed? If you do, here's the support that we have to make sure that happens. Here are other mothers that you can speak to so you can feel more comfortable asking questions about their experiences and their success when it comes to breastfeeding. I don't think that we're seeing that. I mean, the hospitals that I went to are not, I live in Georgia, and we have a few hospitals here. And the one that I can think of specifically that would be in an area that would be low socioeconomic status, I don't think that's a breastfeeding friendly hospital at all. And so I think it starts during the time the mother is pregnant. And I think that formula is what's pushed towards them more so than them being encouraged to breastfeed. I think that's what's happening a lot of the times.
Yeah. And, when we think about this is so important, because when we think about some of the studies out there around, ways to promote health in young children, ways to combat, the disease of childhood obesity, a lot of it ties back to breastfeeding, that is a preventive action that parents can take. So I'm wondering, what's your perspective on why these messages aren't getting out to the Black community, particularly Black mothers?
I mean, we're not where the money's at. So I feel that way about a lot of things when it comes to the Black community. Even, the areas where you see food deserts are, grocery store chains are not putting their grocery stores there because they don't think we're going to be able to afford to purchase the foods. So oftentimes you're seeing a lot of food deserts is because of that. And so it's always about the money. So the financial aspect of it, if they, the powers that be, whomever feels like they're not going to make money, they're not going to gear it towards that population. So when it comes to breastfeeding, even though, yes, breastfeeding is free, but being able to go to a lactation consultant, being able to, now you get pumps through your insurance. So that's a great thing. When my first one, I had to pay for my pump. I didn't get it through my insurance, but now you can get your pump through your insurance. But I'm not sure if Medicaid participants can get a free pump through the insurance. I'm not sure about that. Do you know?
I don't know either.
I don't know about that. So I think
that would be an incentive.
That would be an incentive, but that would be something that would maybe encourage someone to, if they didn't want to directly breastfeed, if they wanted to exclusively pup, or if they wanted to do a combination, they would say, oh yeah, I have a free breast pump now and let me use that. So I think there's a lot of barriers when it comes to these kind of things within the Black community.
Yeah, certainly socioeconomic status is a big barrier, but also, as you mentioned earlier, just, prestige with formula, and that sort of cultural, there's some cultural underpinnings and heritage underpinnings that are also playing into all of this. Are you, I kind of, when I saw that, Instagram post that you did, which I absolutely loved, I was like, you have such a great activist voice around this topic. Whether you realize you do or not, you're really a good model for the Black community in terms of pregnancy, postpartum, raising multiple children in a household, breastfeeding. You've also talked about your postpartum body and trying to get back to where you were before. And I'm not sure if that was before number 5 or before number 1. I'm always like trying to get back to before number 1, but not really. I mean, wasn't super realistic.
I've always gotten back to it. I've always gotten back to my my pre-pregnancy body, but the snapback culture. I never followed.
I don't know what that is.
You don't know what the snapback culture? Oh my gosh! So snapback culture is. You see how celebrities are glamorized. We all know that. So celebrity has a baby and they're like, oh, look at. I think I was reading something about Rihanna the other day because she just had a baby, and it was the headline was Rihanna. I don't know if they used the word snapback, but it alluded to the fact that she is back to looking the way that she was, which for the regular mother who's reading this is like, man, why is it that I'm not getting back to my body so fast? And people will tell me, they're like, Joanne, you snap back so fast. And I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, especially as I've had more kids, it's been harder. The weight is not falling off all the time. Like I work at this, and I lose the first, I would say 3 months, I lose a certain amount of weight. So, the weight from the baby that I've now delivered, fluid loss and all that stuff. And then for a period of time, it's stagnant. Nothing is moving. As a matter of fact, when the milk comes in, I gain a few pounds because, these things get bigger. My breasts get bigger, and they don't tell you that information. And if you're someone who doesn't know and you're sitting there weighing yourself, waiting for weight loss to occur, and it's not occurring, and you're going to be disappointed. And so I tell people, like, just focus on breastfeeding. Some people, breastfeeding does equal weight loss, but some people like myself, my body holds on to that, the fats, because it's like, girl, we need to feed this baby, and it'll hold on to it until I start introducing solids. So now that I'm introducing solids, it's falling off because that's how my body works.
That was my experience too. Just hanging on to the weight until I was done breastfeeding.
Yeah.
You lose the baby weight, the literal baby weight, the 10 pounds or whatever, with the baby and the fluids. But then, there's a good 15, 20, 30 pounds that, over time gradually comes off. But I had the same experience. My body did not want to get rid of the body weight while I was actively breastfeeding.
Right, right. Absolutely. I mean, and I've had people who've told me this after I made the post about it a couple last week, and they were like, and I was 2 years in. It was when I stopped breastfeeding at the 2 year mark.
Yeah.
That's when everything started falling off. And but we're not told this. We're, I would like to encourage people to breastfeed, but I want people to understand the facts. Like every
Mhm.
body is completely different. Every pregnancy is completely different. What may have happened before may not happen again. I work out now more so than I was doing early on in my postpartum journey because I'm not trying to go crazy with my workouts and mess with my milk production.
Right.
So now that food has been introduced, I don't have to worry about that, my breast milk being his primary. It still is primary. Let me not say that. I do not have to worry about it being his only
Hmm.
source of food. And so I can focus on working out. And working out is my thing. Like it reduces my stress. I got 5 kids, y'all. So I need a stress reliever.
It's your break.
It's my break. It's my
Yeah.
stress reliever. I mean, I love to work out. I love exercising. And so snapback culture, don't fall for it. Don't let it disappoint you and make you feel like what's wrong with your body. There's nothing wrong with your body. Your body is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. So it could feed your baby. Just, take it step at a time, baby steps, and introduce workouts little as you can until you increase it. Like at the 6 month mark, once you start introducing food to your baby, you can really start with the workouts. And, that is absolutely fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about, raising 5 boys, and not only just raising 5 boys, because I'm sure there's listeners out there who have, raised multiple children.
Daughters. Yeah.
But you bring a lot of that onto social media and you show us, how to have fun with your kids. And so I'm curious how you integrate your work life with your mom life.
Yeah. So, I mean, since COVID, I've really been at home. I've let go of any clinical contracts that I had because I didn't want to expose my kids to anything during that time. So I'm really at home. I'm a work at home mom, work at
Mhm.
home, stay at home mom. I think that's the terminology. I'm not sure. But I mean, it's my husband and I were really kind of like switching off. So he's daytime, he's working. He'll bring the kids, like we both wake up early, like at 5:30, 6 o'clock, get breakfast ready, get the kids ready for school. My husband brings the kids to school. And then I get back. Early on, I was getting back into bed because I was still tired. My baby's doing better now with sleeping a little bit more through the nights. And so, and then during the morning times, if I am energized enough, I'll go work out early on. I do like to work out early in the mornings. Because I'm less likely to not do it. Because by
Mhm.
the end of the day, if I'm super tired from all the stuff that I've done, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'll work out and then I'll, get to my emails, get to through any kind of like post that I need to do or any kind of like anything that I can do that doesn't require me to be on video or on a phone call with anyone. I can do during that time while
Yeah.
my husband is actually working because he works from home as well. And then I pick up my kids, and then at around the 5 o'clock mark, we switch off. So any kind of clients that I have, if I have interviews for anything, that's the time that I would be able to get it done. So
Gotcha.
I've been blessed enough that, when we went to school, I feel like clinical was what was pushed on everyone who's a dietitian, but we found a way. We found a way to leave that life. So I'm so happy that I became a dietitian because initially I was going to medical school. I was pre-med, exercise science. I got that degree. And then I was like, you know what? I think I like this nutrition stuff. And
Mhm.
I ended up in this field that has really been beneficial to me that I'm able to manipulate and do things with that has allowed me now to be able to be at home
Mhm.
and work from home. And
Yeah.
so life is crazy here. It don't let the social media fool you. It's not a sane life, but it's a fun life. It's a fun life, and it's still chaotic, just like yours is most likely chaotic at home as well.
Mhm.
If you hear my voice on social media, I'm usually doing a voiceover, because if I were to shoot and record, if I'm in the kitchen, for instance, like the background would not even allow me to do that. So I have to shoot whatever I'm shooting, come upstairs to my room or to my closet and do a voiceover so that there's not crazy in the background. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
tell people what you do, what your business is all about.
So I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and my practice, I do focus on a lot of gut health and anti-inflammatory therapies.
Mhm.
Um, in my clinical life, I was working in long-term care. That's
Mm.
where what I was doing. I mean, that's what I got into after I finished my internship. But I got into my private practice because I got sick. I got
Mm.
sick right after I had my first, and I was a new mom. But even with that, I was tired all the time. And I'm like, why am I tired all the time? Okay, I need to start making sure I get 8 hours of sleep. Made sure I got 8 hours of sleep, and I was still tired all the time.
Mm.
And come to find out, I had H. pylori. I didn't know I had H. pylori. I was tested after many, many tests. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They found out I had H. pylori, and it left damage to my gut. And I had low grade inflammation that was causing me to be tired all the time, and my wrists to hurt, headaches and stomach aches. And I mean, it was crazy. And I work a lot with women and moms because, I want moms to know that it's not in your head. If you feel off, something may be going on. Like,
Mhm.
first, let's talk about the basics. Are you doing the basics? Are you getting enough sleep? How's your stress? Are you consuming, as many nutritious foods and fibrous foods as you can? If you're doing all that and you've integrated all that and you're still feeling off, there may be something going on. And so my job is to dig deeper and find out what that root cause is. And so we can develop some person specific nutrition therapy
Yeah.
and help reverse that. And that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. H. pylori. I was a dietitian in a clinical hospital when they first put the name on that.
Really?
Yeah, back in the 90s.
That thing
People were
is
It's pretty, I mean,
it's
I
harsh.
remember back then it was pretty common.
Yeah, it's still, but it's common if you know it. Once you learn about it, you realize how common it is. But if you don't know anything about it, people don't even know the words. I mean, the name H. pylori, they don't know about it.
Can
Um,
you share with the audience what it's all about?
So H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, is a bacterial infection. It's contracted oral, fecal. Um, so if you're someone who travels a lot, um, you may have contracted it, overseas. Eating street food like street vendors and stuff like that. So I'm originally from Haiti.
Mhm.
Um, but my husband and I, as I've been an adult, we've traveled a lot as well. So I don't know where I contracted it. It could stay dormant. And even though you've contracted it, it stays dormant and then it doesn't show up. It could be some kind of stressor that brings it out. And then you start having symptoms for it. It's treated through harsh antibiotics. I had to go through 2 rounds of antibiotics. So the H. pylori messed up my digestive system, and the antibiotics messed up my
Mm.
digestive system. So I had to go through fixing all of that to try to get back to some kind of normalcy. But a lot of times I've seen that with my clients that I've worked with who have H. pylori. They are people who are either from overseas or they've
Mm.
traveled a lot overseas.
Yeah. What are the symptoms of H. pylori? And
So
it's a bacterial infection in your stomach, right? Or is it
yeah,
in the
it's
intestines?
no, yeah, it's in your stomach.
Yeah.
It's in your stomach, and it can, if left untreated, H. pylori does put you at risk for stomach cancer. So
Mm.
that's one of the things I always want to tell people, to make sure, like, if you're having issues, make sure you get them tested. It's very easy for them to test you
Mhm.
But the symptoms can differ from person to person. But oftentimes, if someone has a lot of burning sensation going on in their stomach, the GI area, if they have a lot of reflux, if they've been diagnosed with GERD, all those can be some, one of the signs that you may have H. pylori. But I mean, if it sits long enough, it may start causing symptoms elsewhere outside of the digestive area. So the joint pains that I was having was through low grade like inflammation that had started to spread, and I was starting to have symptoms in other places.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. I hadn't heard about that. There was a flurry of activity around it in the 90s when it was first sort of named.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard it talked about so much, but I suspect that there are quite a few people out there because
ulcers. I didn't even talk about the big one. Ulcers are also a sign. Back in the day, we used to say we said stress was the cause of ulcers, and we didn't associate it with H. pylori. But H. pylori is a source for ulcers.
Wow. Yeah. We used to always say too, drinking too much coffee.
Right.
We've learned a lot, haven't we?
We have learned a lot. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
So as we wrap this interview up, what is it that you would like moms who are, raising a family who might be considering breastfeeding or not, or just even, the whole process of postpartum recovery, everything. What would you like to leave people with as we wrap up?
Find support. Find support any way that you can find the support. Even if it's one mama friend that you find online that you've never met. I have people who I've never met in real life who I speak through in my DMs. I have people who are in Canada, but I'm that little support that I can give them a word or two of encouragement here, in there that has helped them. And if you can find support wherever you can find it, join whatever groups, because we have so many available now. Join them so you can have that support. You may not think you need it now, but there may come a time that you do need it during your postpartum journey. Don't compare yourself to others. Like, you can learn a lot from other people's journeys and what they've gone through and what they have done, but don't compare or expect yours to go exactly as theirs have gone. Because if you do that and it doesn't happen, then you're going to be hard on yourself and you're going to be disappointed, and we don't want that happening. So don't compare your weight loss journey after you had a baby, or how your baby is accepting their foods. Like my best friend, she had a baby 5 months ago, and mine's is now 10 months. Her baby she introduced foods a little early, so the baby's almost 6 months, and she's doing great. Like, she is yum, 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 and yumming. And my baby, I'm like spooning. He's like, what is this? Get that out my face. What are you doing, girl? Like, give me the boobs. I want breast milk. So, don't let that kind of stuff set you up don't be disappointed, just get as much support as you can. Speak to other moms, but don't compare yourselves and expect the exact same things to occur. And I'm available. Even though I have a crazy life, I am available on Instagram, Black Nutritionist Mama. DM me. I'm no expert. I've only had 5 kids, but I'm not. That's where my expertise come from, and I can give you as much support as I can.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask you, how can people find you? Where can they follow you? But very wise words, Joanne. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experience, and really fun. I encourage everybody to go.
Thank you for having me.
Oh gosh,
thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.